You're watching the Link channel from Cablelink. Tonight we begin with our lifestyle programme City Scene, presented by Sharon Monaghan.
Hello and welcome to this edition of City Scene from Cablelink. This week we're in the Square Tala. Coming up in part one, racing at Dublin's Kart City. And we'll take a look at the third level scholarship scheme for South County Dublin. But first we kick off with a visit to Richmond Park, home of St Patrick's Athletic Football Club. It may not be as glamorous as the Premiership or Serie A, but the League of Ireland still boasts a selection of strong teams with huge local support. Last year's winners, St Patrick's Athletic, are carrying on its proud tradition since 1929.
Well, the history of St Patrick's Athletic Football Club began in 1929 here in Inchicore when the club was formed. And from then on it became one of the most successful junior football clubs in Irish football, before joining what was then the League of Ireland in 1951. And we won the league on our first attempt in that year. There was great levels of success in the 1950s, but really the modern day history of the club began here in Richmond Park in 1992-93, when we returned here after a short time in exile, playing our games in Harold's Cross. And from then on, with the guidance of Tim O'Flaherty and Pat Dolan, now our managing director, the club has gone from strength to strength.
Because the League of Ireland is still run on a largely amateur basis, there is no big money to attract foreign stars, or even a particularly active transfer market. Like in the old days, most teams recruit from their localities.
Well, it's supposed to be a professional football player. We draw our players from all over the world, but primarily they're young Irish professional players. And last year we were lucky enough that we won the National League, became champions of Ireland with a record number of points. And I think people remember the fact that we had three of the Malaysian Marvels, the team that finished third under Brian Kerr and Noel O'Reilly in the World Championships. Thomas Morgan, who was the captain, Trevor Malloy and Colin Hawkins. And we also have Keith Doyle, who was part of the under-18 European Championship winning team. So we've got good young Irish players here, and that's very important for our supporters.
Like all clubs, St Pat's has its gallery of heroes who keep the romance of the game alive.
Well, we've had many heroes who have been players during the years. People who remember back in the 50s, people like Shay Gibbons. We had quite a few Irish internationals at that time. People remember Tommy White and Dinny Lowry, players such as those. But in the modern era, we've had people like Paul McGrath played here. Of course, Curtis Fleming, current Irish international. And nowadays we have people like Brian Kerr's trio of Colin Hawkins, Thomas Morgan and Trevor Malloy, plus a new breed of young super saints coming through who are heroes to our young fans.
The good times haven't always rolled at Richmond Park, but those special moments, when they come, make all the heartache worthwhile.
Well, of course, we are known as the club of the 90s now, and we have won the league 3 times since 1990. And it was great, of course, to win the league last season under Pat Dolan's managership, when we clinched the title on the very last day of the season down in Buckley Park in Kilkenny. And of course we represented Ireland as champions in the Champions League this summer against Celtic from Scotland.
If you look at last weekend, when we played Cork City back-to-back, here we had a full house at Richmond Park against Cork. The match was live on television. The ratings for that particular match were 11,000 more than for the Premiership on the same channel. So therefore, the state of the Irish professional soccer is very, very healthy. course it can be improved. We need more facilities such as this stand, which is the biggest stand that's been built in Irish football for 60 years. We need better facilities, both training and for our supporters. But the products here, the quality of play is excellent. Eddie Gormley was scoring here from the halfway line, a la David Beckham, a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully he can repeat that before the season's out.
Pats battled hard and won success in the 95-96 season, and again last year. Supporters now expect players to win and thrill, but can the team bring home the silverware again next year?
Last year we were champions of Ireland. We're up there competing. As long as we're competitive, football is very, very, very volatile. Last week we played against Shamrock Rovers and they hadn't beaten us for a while, and it's a hugely fought Dublin derby. And we had a player sent off after 25 minutes. It was a very contentious decision. We felt it was very harsh, and it changed the balance of the game. When you see that individual games can change so quickly in moments of arbitrary decision by the referee, you get the feeling how volatile this game of football is, and that's what makes it so wonderful. That you cannot ever predict that with any degree of certainty that any team is going to beat another team. Bottom of the table can beat top of the table, and so forth. But there's been good news for the National League this week. Shamrock Rovers, who have a very proud tradition, they're a great football club, that they had the terrible demise of Milltown and Glenmalure Park. They're building a Glenmalure Park Mark II in Talla, and hopefully that's going to be ready for the start of next season. That's wonderful news for the National League. Now you're going to have a strong and vibrant Shamrock Rovers, and considering they already beat us last weekend, that's got to be worrying for all of us, but it's very positive, because it's not just about St Patrick's, it's about the whole of Irish professional soccer.
Sunday drivers stay at home. Speed freaks and adrenaline junkies take a trip to Kart City, where you can live out all your Formula One fantasies and race in your own Grand Prix.
Well, you can do anything from a arrive and drive session, which is a practice setting, just with 1 or 2 people. You can arrive up for a quick spin, or you can do. We do a lot of corporate meetings. If you have 10 people or more, you can do a Grand Prix night. So you get your practice laps, your heats, semis, finals, and bottle of bubbly and all that for the winner after it. So you need about 10 people or more to do one. It did last a couple of hours, and you can either go out indoor or outdoor, whatever, weather permitting, obviously.
A huge factor in the popularity of karting is that drivers don't need a licence, and they know they won't get pulled over for speeding.
You don't need any experience at all, really. You just you arrive up, you sign in, you get your helmet on, suit, you get full driver's briefing, all the rules. So you don't need any experience whatsoever. You know, all there is brake and accelerator, no gears, and the youngest drivers I think was 8 years up. And we have small karts. They usually run inside for 8 to 12-year-olds, and then we have bigger cars for 16 upwards. Then can go outside on the pro track, which is the biggest track we have here. You do about, I'd say, about 40, 45 miles an hour on those karts. We have a lot of people just arrive up and inspect us for a spin, and a lot of corporate stuff. Corporate stuff is the main stuff really we do. For groups of staff nights out, stag parties. We've got a lot of stag parties, hen parties, and social clubs as well to book the place for the night as well. You know, mostly corporate is the main. They use the big outdoor track, the pro track, which is the main tracks we have. You know.
Toys for big boys is how many see karts, especially corporate groups who think tearing around a racetrack is a healthy way of letting off steam.
Well, it's a corporate type thing. Ourselves and the local pub, the Harp Inn, decided to have a night out together and race against each other, just for the fun.
Once out on the track, the adrenaline quickly takes over.
This is our second time here. The first time we came, we were out on the outside track, but because of the weather tonight, we can understand we went on the inside. But we had a very, very good time, very enjoyable, must say.
Races are usually very competitive, and after a few laps, most people are hooked.
Well, I would recommend it because I think it's a very good night's entertainment. You can come up here and be the Michael Schumacher or the Eddie Irvine and really have a good night's entertainment for a reasonable price. The safety element is very important. Helmets, gloves, the right equipment, very important. It's quite scary if you didn't know how to handle the car, but I must say they look after you very well here. They give you good instructions.
So, for the speed demon in you, karting is a great way to experience some of the excitement of racing. And when it comes to thrills, it certainly beats a night in the pub. For many of us, education is taken for granted, but for others it is often a luxury out of reach. City Scene takes a look at the new third-level scholarship scheme, designed for those for whom the cost of education is often too much.
Well, the idea is really to promote third level more in this county, particularly in certain parts of the county. As Seamus said in his speech, the uptake of third level here is very low. I mean, we have a national average of 45% thereabouts, which means that some of the better off districts are having 70–80% uptake, and ours at 4.5–5%. It's just not good enough. So we have monthly meetings with the schools and debate various issues and problems, and out of that debate, this idea, which is not new, but we wanted to do it in a slightly different way, where we encourage students who had the ability, but maybe not the background, to necessarily go into third level.
14 students from 7 schools from South County Dublin were selected for the first such scheme ever run in this area.
The teachers really were the first to, knowing the background, knowing the family, knowing the brothers and sisters beforehand possibly. They knew which children had abilities to get there, to qualify if they were encouraged, and would have the stamina and the determination if they were given support to make a success of it. So we were guided by them, but the businesses made the final choice.
I found out through a guidance counsellor in my secondary school, and he nominated me for it, so that's how I applied for it.
Well, basically the course is all about civil engineering, which is the construction of, say, major roadworks, bridges and major building works. As a part of this course, I do subjects such as surveying, computers, engineering science and labs related to the construction industry.
Without schemes like this, many students are unable to continue in full-time education.
This scholarship is very important to me as it provides extra funds for me for during the week, whereas if I hadn't got this scholarship I might have to work during the week instead of putting more time into my course.
Despite government efforts to make education available to all, it is often only schemes like this third-level scholarship that give pupils from less well-off areas the chance to develop much of their potential. As such, they deserve the support of those in business who can afford to make a difference.
Well, I think it's worthy of, well, it's still a pilot project, so it's worthy of pursuing further. I'm delighted that one of our members has just offered to take 3 students on a sponsorship next year. His request is that he would have, close involvement in selecting the students and the district that would come from. He's in the hotel business, so he's prepared to invest in these kids And if he gets them into his business in the long term, he has the right attitude. His encouragement to students or young people joining this company and his group is to, think long term, think career. We will develop you. You may start at this particular level, but if you want to do it, we can help you get much higher. I'd like to see more and more companies coming forward. And no matter whether they're chamber members or not, anyone in the county that's working here, drawing their profits and their employment and their employees from here, should think about putting something back in. And that's part of the ethos or the philosophy of the Chamber's new initiative, which is investing in the community.
And that's it for part 1. Coming up in part 2, we take a look at the Sugar Miners' Face of 98 Roadshow. And I'll be talking with Michael Hatton on taking care of your pet cat. Join us after this short sponsored break.
Sky Movies presents the November collection. We bring you everything from the classic suit to designer headgear and the pièce de résistance, skin-tight rubber.
Impressive.
We begin with Sky Premier's exclusives range featuring the very latest designs for the outdoor enthusiast.
We're all nuts, right?
The essential ensemble no self-respecting train spotter can be without.
You got the whole state on a manhunt after us.
And something for the professional woman about town.
If you're asking me to drop the case, the answer is no.
George Clooney, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman.
Hi there.
Fight it out for the most outrageous costume award in Batman and Robin. Looking good is the least of Jim Carrey's problems.
I can't lie!
Liar, liar. Tim Allen's not quite sure if red really is his colour.
I am not Santa Claus!
And Woody Harrelson and Courtney Love go retro in The People versus Larry Flint.
You're under arrest? All I'm guilty of is bad taste.
The show continues on Sky Movie Max when style goes positively prehistoric.
You hear something?
In The Relic. The dress code for the funeral is definitely black.
Is someone there?
There's designer chic horror style courtesy of Courtney Cox and the Scream team. And Damon Wayans and Adam Sandler don't care what they wear, as long as it's bulletproof.
I gotta learn how to fight. This is pathetic.
Sky Movies for November from Cablelink.
With stormy weather raging against our coasts, City Scene takes a look at the work of the Seal Sanctuary, which rescues and looks after animals both injured and washed ashore.
Grey seals are the world's first protected species. Since the turn of the century, they've received protection initially in Britain since 1976 in Ireland. They're really sea nomads, sea gypsies. But they're well known to people along the Dublin coastline and at various other points around the coast. In Dublin particularly, we have an enclave which is quite unique in the world, which is a population of almost urban grey seals. They have spread from Lambay and the Skerries Islands along the Dublin coast. They breed at this time of the year. The cows all pup almost simultaneously within a period of weeks. They're mated again. The pup is actually reared in 3 weeks on the richest milk in the world, and then the mother just takes off. Maternal band severed, and the pup, 3 times its birth weight, maybe 50, 60 pounds weight, is high and dry on the beach, a big barrel of blubber, and it has to get into the sea and learn to fish and actually learn to swim. So if things are bad, as the weather has been, they're going to have a tough time. Very often the seal will be in good condition and actually resting. So the best thing to do is actually observe for a period if it's not in immediate danger from dogs or people. But if it is in danger, just to mount watch on it so that dogs or people don't inadvertently harass it. Call the Irish Seal Sanctuary or any Garda station or any of the Parks and Wildlife Service, lifeboats, marine emergency services. All of these people link and network with us. But with the help of all these people, we're able to sustain a pretty good coast watch for marine mammals all around the coast. So call us. We'll advise straight away. If there's help needed, there'll be somebody on the way to you. There's expert handling help, husbandry help, and veterinary help at the end of the line for us. So give us a shout and don't overreact. You know, keep people dogs away. and look for a bit of professional advice. As you can see, we're snowed under with seal pups, and it's down to two things. The bank holiday, number one, lots of people are out on the coast, and two, actually the weather, and a storm has just hit right in the middle of the grey seal pupping season. Pups are either at the edges of the breeding grounds and a storm hits, and white-coat pups, which are the very young pups, get washed into the sea. The second phenomenon, such as the one that just came in this morning from Portmarnock, is a recently weaned pup who has been at sea already, but in extremely bad weather and unable to make a success of fishing. And so he's deteriorated in condition very seriously, to the point he's given up really. He's coming ashore, and the storms are driving him. They're actually even crossing roads at this point around the country to get away from the sea. On performance, we know we've one of the best success rates in the world of any seal sanctuary. We're a voluntary organisation. We have very, very little resources. We've built what we have here, little that it is, you might say by the Assisi Road, stone on stone, voluntary labour, a lot of our people unemployed. So we actually do need money. We're 13 years at this operation. We've good scientists. We have, like I say, a success rate to match the best in the world. And we're still using basins and boxes and buckets, and thanks to some local people, we'd have to say as well, like firms like Rocon, who sent a few builders to help us out. Firms like Ashburn Pools, who are actually in the process of putting up some pools for us, which have been funded by Patagonia, a Dublin shop again. Lots of Dublin connections. We're really Dublin based. And other than that, we wouldn't even be able to keep going at call. Fingal Seafoods provide us with all our fish. The beleaguered coastal communities here in North Dublin have done so for many years. So, I suppose we're suffering, like in the day of the Celtic Tiger, we're victims of the economic boom in many ways. We're bottom of the economic order, same as the seals themselves, and same as, I would say, the small inshore fleets. We desperately, desperately need monies and materials. We have what we call a wish list. We need a new deep freeze, we need a new blender, we need a new vehicle for transport. Our vehicle goes off the road in a fortnight's time. We have huge phone bills monitoring this, so we need money and we need help. We are one of the most successful